whilst you are the head of family, with, of course, the changing dynamics of marriage nowadays, there are so many other things that we do to make sure that as men are prepared and to lead their families.
Okay. So because of the RORA issue, for those who don't understand, RORA is where we, or what we can call bride price. Is it also a way of probably making sure that someone is financially responsible to raise a family?
Correct, correct. It's very, very important because when you have that financial discipline and you are able then to look after these, because normally in
Thank you. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gota Men's Issues. And today we have Dr A Zivave from the Gutaramwari religion, and we are going to be talking on a subject on how boy religion, or how his religion is preparing boys for marriage in the 21st century. I just want to welcome you, Doctor. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Pastor Mazenge, for giving us this opportunity to talk about what Gutaramwari is doing for the generation that is to come.
Thank you, Doctor. It's good to see you. And maybe before we enter into the topic, one thing that I know about Gutaramwari is that it's one of the indigenous religions that was founded from Zimbabwe. But the fact that you and me are sitting here in Australia talking about it means it's a religion that has also managed to go international. Can you just maybe tell us a brief background of your religion? And also you tell us your role either in Australia or at international level as well.
Thank you very much. I get so excited when we talk about Gutaramwari religion, and we have put it very well, Pastor, that this is one of those religions that are sort of like indigenous, one of the indigenous Zimbabwean religions. Gutaramwari, maybe a little bit of history from Gota Jehovah, Maichaza, if others will use that word. And we are actually a direct descendant of that.
Also, Gutaramwari is from Gota Jehovah.
Yes.
So we are linked then, because my Chaza and my church, we are linked a little bit.
Oh, that's And as you may be aware that I think when my Chaza was in the Methodist Church and all that, something happened there. We believe and in Gutaramwari that that is the voice of God that descended in Africa. And of course, if you follow the Gota Jehovah, you will see some miraculous things that happened. However, God went on rest and then reincarnated Mr. Taxwell Tayali in 1961. And that's where it's a very young religion. So we just, barely 100 years old as other religions we are talking about. But the foundations and the fundamental issue here about Gutaramwari is that we focus, in other words, God came to heal particularly the African community and return us back to some of the traditions that we were doing before Christianity came in. We have no quarrels with Christianity. We live side by side. We all praise God. We all have, but like the African tradition, we speak directly with God. Before Christianity, our parents, our forefathers, our grandfathers knew that there was God, Mari, Msikavan. And we spoke directly. They had ways of communicating directly with God. And this is where Gutaramwari comes in. And because God came and taught us how to communicate directly with Him, and these are the things that we follow. So predominantly, we look at those who may have any afflictions of any sort. In Gutaramwari, what we believe in is that we do have the flesh, and we also have the spirit. Because there's the spirit, there are some spiritual issues that require spiritual intervention. And this is where the Gutaramwari spirit comes in. And where the flesh has some issues, we encourage our members to go for medical attention, where that is required, together with the healing power in Gutaramwari. And basically, as I say, it's more like a healing. So when you normally people would come to Gutaramwari if they faced some, like my parents we had serious troubles in the family. They had tried everything, including traditional healers and everything, but things were not improving until they met Gutaramwari. They went to Gutaramwari, and we got the salvation the parents were seeking at that time. I then grew up in the religion, and then I started realizing that, okay, if I ask for this, God provides. If I ask for that, God provides. So I then stayed. What we do is, if someone has got the issues, they come to Gutaramwari, they are admitted. At admission, they pay what we call a sin offering fee. And after that sin offering fee, it's quite ridiculous, to tell the truth, it's like $12. It's just something to say, yes, I'm committing myself to this. And after 3 months, in other words, God has set a time frame that in those 3 months, if you have an ailment, you have something there, you will be healed, or you will see some changes in those 3 months. After those 3 months, you then take a membership card if you want to stay in Gutaramwari.
Okay.
So after then you stay and you say, okay, I take my membership card, then you want to show the world that, no, I'm a Gutaramwari member. Then you can put the attire on. It's not forced. It's not like someone has to. But when you want them to say, okay, this is who I am, I'm a Gutaramwari member, as you can see right now, you wouldn't even mistake me for anything. And therefore, after those 3 months, if you so wish, then you can, and you can be a member and continue to be a member without putting the attire, the attire.
So the attire, any member who is willing can put on the attire. It's not like ranks or something.
No, it's not mandated, and we do have a sash that when we are in the middle of our service, we do also put that. And one other thing that we have heard about the stories about our attire is from the members themselves. They have had issues, and they found that the attire has also some healing power with it, to go with it.
Yes. Interesting. So you mentioned that you go to hospitals. If someone is sick, they may go to hospital if they so wish.
Yes.
And you are a doctor academically. So your religion is different from some of the other indigenous religions where they discourage people from going to hospital. They also discourage people from going to school.
Yes, Gutaramwari is found on principles. We value what God has said, that men shall eat what they've gone to look for, and they work for. And therefore we encourage all our children to go to school. We encourage, if you go to our constitution, one of those things is that you have to find something that you do to legally earn a living. We don't encourage people to go out and either rob or steal or whatever, but we encourage to go out, and if you are a farmer, go and do your farming. If you are a miner, go and do your mining properly, ethically, and according to the laws. So it's very, very important. And our children, we encourage education is one of those pillars that build Gutaramwari. And medication, God has said, there are even some traditional medicines that we use, but the only problem is some of those traditional medicines are not calculated. You don't know the dosage. So God has given the doctors that information to calculate that if you have got a migraine, if you take this much, it's going to help. But if you take that, it might be an overdose. And these are the things that, and this is why we actually go to hospitals and seek that medical attention when it is required.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good to learn and understand and know so many things about other religions. But now, coming back to our topic, in this topic, we're just looking at how religions are preparing boys for marriage in the 21st century. The main reason why we had to come up with this topic is that I've seen from so many sectors or so many, either in the secular world or in the religious world, women are being prepared more for marriage, but it seems like our boys are being neglected. And I was also looking at an organization that I was speaking to. I was speaking to a leader of a certain organization called Sexto Australia. They go into schools and they start teaching about sexual issues to our children from as low as preparatory. At home we are quiet, and religiously we are quiet. We are just not teaching our boys on how these things work. So the first thing that I want to understand is maybe the general understanding about Gutaramwari religion. How do you define the role of a husband in marriage?
Thank you, Pastor Masenge. In our religion, the husband is uh, the head of the family, and there are so many ways that we do to prepare that person to become the head of the family. And one of those things is, of course, traditionally we encourage Rora. You have to go and pay your bride price and to show your that you are now responsible. Again, those two things teach responsibility. And customarily, before you had your own thing, your parents wouldn't allow you to go and marry. So it encouraged people to go out there to find something. I remember when you go back into the African traditions, you would have to have a cow or something to show that now you are ready for marriage. And I'm glad, because these are the things that we are following in Gutaramwari to make sure that whilst you are the head of family, with of course the changing dynamics of marriage nowadays, there are so many other things that we do to make sure that as men are prepared and to lead their families.
Okay. So because of the RORA issue, for those who don't understand, RORA is where we, or what we can call bride price. Is it also a way of probably making sure that someone is financially responsible to raise a family?
Correct, correct. It's very, very important, because when you have that financial discipline and you are able then to look after these, because normally in one of those pillars in Gutaramwari is we encourage families, and families are the cornerstone. And in families, what we expect are children.
Okay.
Right? So if we are expecting children, children require financial resources to maintain them. So someone must be able to earn a living, to be able to do something that will enable them to look after those children.
Okay. I've had one, I don't know, one church, or maybe I can call it religion. The ones that wear white. I'm not sure which Joan Masowe, but there are so many. I'm not sure which one. But they say when you are getting married, I think you just bring six cows or 6 or 8 cows, and you are done. There's no many other things like Rusambo and so forth. Do you have any stipulated amount when someone is getting married? For the order expectations from your religion, do you have anything stipulated?
We do not prescribe to families, because then that becomes more like in our setting. Gutaramwari, as you have said, now we are international. We encourage the traditions of every religion or every community that we live in. So if we have members of, say, for example, in Botswana, they do it differently to the way we do it in Zimbabwe. Okay. And in Zimbabwe, the way we do it in Mashonaland is quite different from the way we do it in Matebeleland. Yeah. So we don't sort of like prescribe one size fits all, but we leave that to individual, remembering that there's a lot of structures in Gutaramwari. There are councillors and all that. So should there be any issues around those, there are people to go and talk to about. So if, say, for example, someone became greedy and said, maybe I want 5 kilograms of gold before you take my daughter.
Yeah.
There are people who you can go to and we can work and resolve some of those issues.
Okay.
Yeah, but we traditionally require that all those things that Sambo, the jackets for parents, danga, for the family, they need to be provided.
Okay.
And one of those strong things about our religion is that we do not encourage people to stay or to remain. Some people just go and say, okay, I want to marry you. Okay, I will have only maybe this, and then I take the wife, and then before you realize the parents are dead and all that, and no other Rora has gone back there. So we encourage people to pay up their bride price.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so do you have any specific teachings or principles that guide boys as they prepare for marriage?
We have lots. As I said, God has revived our cultural and traditional values. In Gutaramwari, I believe you, Pastor Mazenge, we have 3 main ceremonies that we do, and one of them is the harvest ceremony.
Okay.
During the harvest ceremony, our boys and girls go to the river. When we say they go to Rukova, the river where they are examined for virginity. We still practice that up to now.
So both boys and girls?
Both boys and girls. The girls will go with the ladies, the boys will go with the men, and they are all, and those who are successful are given a token to show that they have been successful. And
so what did you say the ceremony is called?
Virginity examination. Rukova. With the river, yeah.
So it's Rukova ceremony coming from the river where they're going to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that way, it prepares the boys for looking after themselves. During that ceremony, that time as well, this is where boys are put according to their age levels. Those who are ready for marriage, they have a different teaching for those who are also growing up.
Okay.
And that's where we now go into specifics. We have youth coordinators who do all that for the religion.
Okay.
Yes, so they make sure that these youngsters are taught about what is it in marriage, how does it feel like to be in marriage. They bring young couples to talk to them as well, and also offer that opportunity for dating, talk about those topics. What is it that you have to look for in a partner?
Okay.
All right, and those are very important things. I grew up in that. I got that teaching, and luckily for me, I got my wife from Gutaramwari as well, and together we have made a very strong couple, a very strong family, because we all knew that we all came from. We were being checked on virginity. We all bought virgins, and we all knew what we were doing in terms of looking after our bodies.
Okay. So when this Rukova ceremony is being done, so there are lessons that are also made there.
Yes.
Okay.
So what happens is like it's a ceremony where we all gather people from all walks. Even now, even if the children cannot travel, we can still do it at the local venue.
Okay.
But what then happens is that after they've come, we then sit down. And then they go into their groups, and then we do have speakers, and like I said, including young adults and senior, mature youth coordinators. Then they talk about these things. That why is it important in the first place to look after yourself, right? It's very, very important, and that also translates when you go into a marriage. Fidelity in marriage is very important.
Yeah.
So when you grow up being promiscuous, how do we then expect you to change when you are now married in a marriage?
Okay.
So we start from there, right? We start from there. And remembering. So I remember, of course, this happens, but for those who may falter, they are given a second chance.
Okay.
Right? And they are taught.
Yeah, I wanted to come to that.
Yes,
How
yes.
do you, for example, I came to Gutaramwari maybe after I had already faltered. How am I treated if I go to the ceremony, and then you find out that I'm not pure anymore in terms of sexual life. How am I given a second chance? How am I redeemed from my past mistakes?
Thank you very much. Remembering, like we said, that we have the flesh and we have the spirit. When we come to this here, we are talking about the spirit.
Yeah.
So what we do is we are not just going to say all children line up and we check.
Yeah.
No, they are given a teaching. If you know that this year or something has happened in my life and I am no longer that pure, don't go to the river. Go to this other place
Also,
where they are cancelled. Yes, we are not about embarrassing, we are not about humiliating. It's about educating. It's about, yes. And then they make a commitment that, yes, I think I made a mistake. They look in the review mirror, they know where they've made a mistake, and they stop from there going forward.
Also, so the river is for those that are confident that I'm still pure.
Yes.
And then if you know you have done something, you go to another.
You have an option to say, okay, I'm not going here, but I can go here, and you receive counseling. And we talk about how you can look after yourself, going from there, going forward. So again, it's more like teaching, more like educating. And the importance in there, we talk about, what sexuality is. That when you sleep with someone, we're talking about spirits, the spiritual. Yeah. So how many spirits do you want to have on you? And how are those spirits going to impact on your development and self-care? So those are the topics we look after, and we talk to them, and we teach them, and we guide them.
Okay. That's interesting. So in terms of the faith or the spirituality of Gutaramwari, what role does the spirituality in your religion play in shaping a boy's readiness for the responsibilities of marriage? We know you spoke about the lobola at the beginning, but probably it's something that someone can work towards as a goal and a target. But there are so many other responsibilities in marriage. How do you shape someone's spirituality from your religious perspective on their readiness for the responsibilities of marriage? Many other responsibilities, not just financial or maybe sexual. How do you?
There are a number of things. I've just spoken about the harvest period, but in between we do have an international youth conference. Whilst we encourage branches to have youth seminars here and there, these youth coordinators organize international youth conferences. At these international youth conferences, we again address some of those pertinent things like looking at honesty, responsibility, teaching our children, our youths, our youngsters, our young males what responsibility is. And prayer. We also ask, because there's nothing other than the prayer which opens the keys. And we have songs that are also around that, where you say, if you want a good wife, you start by praying for the good wife. So we guide them in that way, and in between, we also, not only apart from just these seminars and all that, we also allow them to have question and answer. Okay. So it's not just lecturing, we're going there to lecture them and tell them what is to be done. No, but we do have open forums where we do, because sometimes, as you have said earlier on, that there are other religions or other groups that go into schools and start teaching from kinder, going up, right? This, at family level, it's very difficult for even a father to start talking about some of this in our culture and in our tradition. It's very difficult. Yeah. In the past, it would be uncles and grandparents and all that who would do that. And we have taken that role of the sekurus, the grandparents and uncles, and we have placed it on the coordinators. So then they sit and just have this question and answer method. And the kids then ask the questions. And some of them say, oh, I'm shy to ask this question. Maybe they might think I'm naughty and all that. we encourage them to write their questions and put in a box.
Yeah.
So, and then we just answer from that. So again, that way we have tried to address some of those challenges that the children face, that they come back to us and get some guidance.
One of the most important factors, maybe I'll bring in two questions there. One of the most important factors in marriage is emotional maturity. Because in so many cases of life,
Yes.
there are some people who believe once someone is turned 18, they are old enough to get married. Once someone is, maybe some they say 23 or 25, or once someone has graduated from university. But I personally think that you can be 40 and not yet emotionally mature to get married. We are seeing a lot of people who are getting into marriage because of age, but emotionally they are not yet mature. How does your religion encourage boys to develop emotional maturity for marriage?
That's a very good question and a very good observation. We also have observed that in some cases, some people, just because I'm now 30 or 40 now, or and basically around 23, 24, our youths, sort of, we consider them young adults now, and at that stage, yes, marriage is expected, and any time after that. We really don't discourage young people to get married at a tender age, as you have talked about emotional maturity. But it's very, very important that we work with families in that respect, because they know their children better.
Okay.
And some might have even a big body, but that doesn't mean they are ready to get into marriage.
Yeah.
So there are a number of teachings again that go to the children about what is it that we are expecting in marriage.
Okay.
And one of those, as you said, again, we encourage this making payment of lobola, and we also discourage people going, or what we used to say, kutizira, and just go eloped and go in and live with someone. It's taboo in Gutaramwari.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we don't encourage that.
All right.
And that also stops some of these people who are quite immature getting into families. Because what then tends to happen is the offsprings are the ones that suffer in those relationships.
Yeah.
And again, in Gutaramwari, we don't encourage divorce. It's the last resort. There are structures that support. And so from those, we have learned some things that we need to impart to the children.
Yeah.
And before they sit, or before anyone says, now I'm going to marry, they must go to the youth coordinators, get to know first.
Yeah.
They sit them down. They go to our counselors. They will sit them down to talk about all this, to see whether they are now ready for, because sometimes maybe someone is pregnant and they just want to quickly cover, so I'm going, but we have all those structures where we talk about these things, and the youth counselors realize and give guidance. If it is because they are marrying because of something that has happened, they are given counsel or other alternatives of handling that situation. And so in that way, we make sure that those who are now ending up in marriage, they are emotionally mature.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean that the coordinator will say, oh, you are not mature, you are not going to marry now. No. But they then provide the supports they need to get to where they want to get to. So if we realize that this person, they want to marry, but they are not yet ready, we then look at what supports do they require to be able to be ready for their marriage. Yes.
Okay. Let's say I'm not willing to be a member of Gutaramwari, but I'm interested in your lessons. I'm a young person. I've heard about them. You are an academic yourself. Do you have them somewhere written, like booklets that teach young people, or do you have them somewhere recorded, videos or something, where anyone who is not part of your religion can actually access them?
Yes, and we do have, and I brought some of the books here that is Zidzo, Nezimiso Zamwari. So we have some chapters there that relate to those specific ones. This one is in Shona though, but we do have English versions. So we have different literature that we have prepared to guide, and we have specific areas where then you can talk about youths and children and how they, so there we have volumes, and this is volume 3. And maybe what I might, if someone wants, some of the questions you are talking about may be in volume 1 and some of them in volume 2. But I just brought as samples to show you that we do have our own literature as well. Is the Gutaramwari, 12 lessons and 52 chapters of God's work.
So are these not the same as the Bible on Christianity? Because we have the Bible,
yes,
but you might barely find somewhere where you specifically say in the Bible, in this segment, we find somewhere where we teach youths on how to get married, how to treat your wife when you get married, or how to be responsible. Do you have books that are specifically for the young people, especially for marriage?
We don't have one that specifically deal with marriage, but we have one that looks at the youths. And it covers, even in our handbook, it defines what marriage is, what we expect of marriage. It's all also in the handbook. So you'll find that in our handbook. And yes, if someone says, oh, I really want to even attend our international youth conferences, if you're a non-member and you have heard about it, because usually, like I said, we are very young religion. Because we are young, sometimes information dissemination is costly. But if you come across our flyers or anything, or you are interested, please send any of your questions through to our email. And you can find us on Facebook. You can find us also. We have our website. You can send some questions there and follow that. And if we have an international youth conference and you want to come along, by no means come along. Even when we conduct our services and you want to hear or see how we do it, please come along.
So in marriage, there are specific skills that are required. For example, things like communication, things like financial management that are essential for, especially for modern marriages. As we are speaking, we are here in Australia. Probably the way we handle finances is different from the way we used to handle them back home. Are your boys taught specific skills in those areas? So communication, financial management, etc.
Thank you very much. One of our the anchors in Gutaramwari is that the youths have their own dedicated service that they run. They run on Wednesdays. We have a youth service on every Wednesday. And that Wednesday, in our religion, we don't have probably maybe the evangelist, like I'm an evangelist in Gutaramwari, just preaching for the whole time. No, but we do have members coming to give testimony. So everyone takes a turn to the podium. What that does, and I liked it because it trains public speaking. It trains someone those skills to be able to interact with other people. And that is a very, very important step that we do impart to our...
So that covers communication.
That covers a lot of communication and all that. Then when you look at with the finances, we have youths normally during our harvest conference, as I've said, because we're already having youths who are working. Because people don't just go and marry before they work. Most of them are working. So we do have that aspect of financial discipline. It's part of that because, look, one is the youths, they're getting good money, they've got a vehicle, they've got a flat or something like that where they go to live up. The next thing is probably they want more entertainment and could lead them astray in terms of promiscuity and all that. So we start from that age where we talk about financial discipline, goals. What is your goal? How are you going to achieve that goal? Saving is very, very important. It's one of those things that we talk about and help our youths to be able to make that decision that I'm saving for this. Like what if you are just going in and you know you are going to marry, we encourage that you must marry with a wedding. You must have a wedding. So you need to start saving for your wedding.
All right.
So then you don't have that luxury to, to splash the money because you've got now a goal that I must marry. After marrying, I want to do a wedding.
Okay.
And we encourage those three principles.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. How about the challenges of the 21st century, like gender equality? We spoke about income, but dual income households, those are becoming challenges because when we got married, probably back home, we know the traditional roles of Baba, but now we are in an era where both parents are working. Probably Amai is working longer hours than Baba.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Master, you just touch on a very sensitive issue.
those gender roles now. How are you touching on them? Because the streets have taught us how to be a Baba. Yeah, junior society Baba and it's comfortable, you know. How do you switch that thing to a person who has now switched into the 21st century where the roles have already been? Because the problem when it comes to tradition is that most of the things that we practice traditionally are not written down. So we just follow them blindly. I always give people an example of a video of a man who was holding a rod, yet his wife was pregnant with a dish on top of his head and a child on the back. The man was just holding a rod. That's a tradition that has been passed on from long back. But the reason why long ago that man was holding a rod was because there were wild animals that were dangerous. So the man was protecting his wife from those wild animals. But today, you just see someone is taking that from tradition. And we are so adamant to say we need to observe our tradition, but some of these things are not written down. Why were they being practiced? How are you addressing the challenges of the 21st century relationships, such as gender roles, gender equality, and dual income households?
Thank you very much. As I said, this is quite, there are these gender stereotypes or maybe, like you said, men can only do that, women can only do that. Fortunately, in Gutaramwari, even when I was growing up, we were taught that there is no specific role for genders. I grew up even doing the floor at our house in Fakose then, and I did see no problems with that. And as we grow, yes, we do have those people where they think, oh, the wife is supposed to do A, B, C, D. But we said, what we teach is respect in a marriage. When we talk of respect, like you said, even if the wife is going out and working and getting more hours and more money than the husband, we complement each other. We work collaboratively. One of those things, we join Gutaramwari or you read our literature, you will see that we talk about husband and wife sitting together, making decisions together. Even when you come to give your tithe or you want to do any donations to the church, what you need to do is we encourage for God to bless it. Both husband and wife must agree. They must come together like, okay, how much are we going to be contributing? We encourage that. We teach that. We practice that. Even at home, we want to buy things for the family. How much are we going to use for the clothes for the kids? How much are we going to pay for this and so forth? And we encourage that if, for example, if the wife is working, in terms of going for a 9-to-5 job to bring in money, doesn't mean that they are not working. They are cleaning the house. They are doing this. They are doing other duties. Yes. And of course, because of that, when the husband comes from work, the way they would treat them, it would be different. For example, me and my wife Victoria, she's also working. We all get home at the same time. And then I can't then say, I'll fold my legs and say, okay, Victoria, you bring tea for me, you bring food for me. I'll go cook and I'll just read the newspaper. I wouldn't expect that.
Okay.
And maybe, for example, I have a day off and Victoria is at work. She finds home, I've prepared something to eat for her.
Okay.
So we encourage that, but like you said, it's a mindset that we need to keep in, particularly as you said, it's something that we normally term traditional, but there wasn't anything like that in our tradition. We do, when you look back, as you say, the head of the house was more like the think tank, and the others were actually probably used as handles to do the work. And this is why, if you look at in some, of course, in Gutaramwari, we are a monogamous, we encourage monogamous relationships. But you will see that back then, this is what brought about polygamy.
Yeah.
Because the husband would be thinking, if I get more children who can do the farming for me, whilst I'm doing other things,
Yeah.
you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But then they thought, oh, the women should be the only ones doing the fields,
Yeah.
and the husband is sitting there. No, they were busy strategizing for the next move, the next thing to happen.
Yeah.
You know, so the same thing, but here we are now all going maybe a 9-to-5 job, all of us. So we come home, we help each other, and this is what we preach and we encourage in our marriages in Gutaramwari.
Interesting. It seems like Gutaramwari is well advanced. One of the important factors when it comes to marriage is traditionally when we were growing up, the family structure. There were, like we said, there were tetes, there were uncles that you would go and talk to.
Yes.
The family structure was more important. Yes, we had external structures, but the family structure, that's where we were really being taught some of these things. Do you have any family or religious or what role do you allow the family? How much do you allow the family to play a role in preparing the boys for marriage? Yes, we've got coordinators, like you said, at the church, but how do you encourage the family as well to be involved? Like because I personally feel like sometimes we then neglect the responsibility to the coordinators at church, but the family has no idea what is really happening. Maybe if it is a girl, they're just waiting for the lobola to come in. What role? How do we encourage families to be involved in their children's upbringing, especially when it comes to training them for marriage?
Thank you very much, Pastor, for that one. It comes back to, like I said, our annual harvest conferences, because when we go to the Rukova, to the river issue, the family would be advised whether, if someone has been successful, we encourage them to have talk around that, to encourage their child, and even in nowadays you give something, the carrot, you also buy a present. If your child is like that, we encourage them to do that, to have a conversation around that, and continue to encourage the child to do well.
Yeah.
And for those who may have faltered, you start to have telltale signs. So it means parents, you begin to be proactive in monitoring and guiding your child. You know, back home, you wouldn't travel at night.
Yeah.
And then when something like that happens, it's even it encourages parents to start to put boundaries around their child, to safeguard them.
Yeah.
Not to be punitive, but to be able to safeguard them, to stop them from re-offending or committing that, and sort of like provide that guidance. So that is we do it annually. So it is a very, very important ceremony that guides our youths, and that guides the men to do well, to continue to do well, to expect, because they know that if I don't do well here, how are my parents going to feel? I will disappoint my parents, I will disappoint this. So sometimes it does also help in the back of the mind. But we also provide that counseling to the parents that, if someone is faulted, it's not going home and getting a belt and say why it happened and tell me exactly where it happened and what exactly. So there's also that counseling that is also provided to the parents, and what sort of conversation they should have with their children. And again, as I said, put some boundaries around to safeguard their child.
Oh, okay. All right. So, how about the discussions about relationship and expectations before marriage? How do you encourage them? Because, like I said, nowadays, uh, or like I said, from traditionally from our background as Africans, some of these discussions were a taboo to talk about, especially between parents and their children. But right now, probably you are the only Zivave who is here. Maybe the rest are in Africa. You cannot expect your children to go back to Africa when they want to hear about these things. Sometimes we need to change these laws. How are you encouraging those discussions? Because the reason why I always ask people how they're encouraging people is because I've seen that, especially in this part of the world, our children are being exposed to these things at a very early age. And if we keep quiet and wait until it's too late, they are going to be having other lessons sticking into their minds, which they've either been taught through the internet or they've been taught in the schools, because the schools are not quiet. They teach our children, and some of the things they are teaching them are very wrong. As an academic, you know that even something can be taught today, and in 15 years' time, they'll say, "Oh, this is obsolete."
Yes.
We regret to inform to you that this is wrong, but the damage has already been done. So, how are you encouraging the discussions about relationships and expectations before marriage?
Thank you. You know what? Like you've said, I mean, even when you look back, I mean, when you and I went to school, probably the cane was still in, but research has shown that it does more harm than good.
Yeah.
So we abandoned that. So we're looking at other ways of disciplining and all that.
Yeah.
The same in Gutaramwari. We also look at how is the world is changing. We look at how best can we reach out. And one of those things now with technology, like you're saying, particularly like you said, people who are in isolated places like here, isolated in the sense that the majority of our youths are down there in Africa. We do have options we do run services on Zoom. We do run some of these things on social media. We have groups where we are sharing that kind of information. But above all, when we are talking about and preparing our youths, things that, as you mentioned, we always put that fear of God and what God says and what God expects and the blessings you get by following the statutes of the religion. That is very, very important. Because as I've said, with us, with Gutaramwari, it's more like I would always refer back to science experiments. Gutaramwari, we are saying we are a religious organization that helps people who have issues. So if you have an issue, it's more like an experiment. You come and you put your issue there. And we tell you what you need to do to have that issue resolved. And you wait. If you follow what you have been taught, and that does not happen, you're free to leave.
Okay.
But then the good thing is that when you start to see that something is happening and all that, and this is why our youths realize and stay in Gutaramwari, because they've asked for things and they've gotten them. And now that they know that this power works, they want them to keep it. And we give them that, to keep it, these are the things we need to do. And one of those things is to fear God and follow these practices. And hence, some of them follow those practices.
Okay. And then 21st century dynamics of marriage. I mean, there are dynamics that are just confusing and affecting everyone. How are you being proactive in addressing those unique pressures and dynamics of the 21st century marriage?
The good thing is that these come to values, family values, religious values, and all that.
Yeah.
And so, if from the programs that we run, if someone is endowed in these values that we are talking about, and they live within those values, then the expectation is that they are going to thrive in those values. Hence, yes, the changes that come in, they can field them. And there are so many pressures on marriage in this day and age as compared to the past. Like you said, one of those could be just even the husband, the wife getting more pay than the husband. We have had those issues. And like I said, because we have got values, we go back to our fundamental values. What is it that we value? What is it that we value in marriage? Are we valuing the material things, or are we valuing the relationship between husband and wife? And so once we ground back to that, when we ground ourselves on that, it becomes easier to resolve such things. Because you see, with financial power muscle comes with decisions. So this is where the trouble comes in, but we then come in back to say, yes, we can talk about this, we can arrive at this, and one of those things I said right from the beginning is husband and wife must agree on what they are doing.
Okay.
If there is a disagreement, we do have structures, like I said, they go to counselors, they go here, and they receive the guidance they require.
Oh, that's good. One of the things I picked as we were discussing is how your religion values people's tradition. Like when we were talking about Lobola, you said if someone is in Botswana, they have to do it according to their tradition in Botswana, which probably means to say your religion is not coming to abolish people's values and traditions, but it's building on that. In what ways then are you helping boys to navigate the societal changes while staying true to their traditional marital values? Because the society is changing every day. We see things that we had never thought we would see in our lifetime. The world has become a global village, and the changes are happening very fast, very quick, and every day. How do you encourage your boys, or how do you guide them to navigate the societal changes that are happening every day while staying true to traditional marital values? Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. You mentioned about tradition and all that. We do value the African tradition. And at one of these ceremonies I've talked about that we run, we actually come in dressed in our youth's traditional African ndikiza and all that.
Okay.
And they actually perform on stage. And one that sticks in my mind is the Chana tradition, where they're singing their Ntumelelo and all that, and doing their traditional dance and all that. We do celebrate Africanism. We do celebrate that at our functions. You can go on YouTube and everywhere. You can see us there, our youths performing those traditional things. But yes, the world is changing. The youths, the marriages that we are seeing, the things that are happening in this world have an impact on some of the beliefs, some of the values that we have. The good thing is that in Gutaramwari, we are always open to change. However, grounding it on our values. We do not just change for the sake of changing. We do not just go to do this because of that. We have some of what we call our standing orders. And those orders are the pillars of our religion and the values. And whatever we are, we make reference to that. Whatever comes in our way, we make reference to that. We have, as you have acknowledged, that we have. No, I'm not the only one in there with a PhD, but there's so many. So we sit around, we talk about, we look at what is good for. We continue to evolve with research. We follow research, what research tells us. We look at all that, hinging on what God taught us to be, what we should be, and who we should be. Yes, and that is who we are as human beings. As Ubuntu, Uchivano, Munonzi Mono. What is it? What are the values of Mono? And particularly if you are a man, what is it that we expect of you? And men traditionally I mean, that's why even in sports we don't race men and women. There's things, there are different genders there.
Yeah.
And therefore, men, you have certain responsibilities that you have to be aware of and to not overuse that power that we do have. So we have to exist with our partners and we have to share that responsibility. And we talk about these things within our religion, so that everyone who is growing up in there, who is maturing in there, we have role models where we are saying, here are our role models. They are mentors, youth mentors, who come in and help where there are situations and provide and present to our youths some of the information, and we gather statistics. We realize that there are some issues here with the number of incidences that are reported with counselors. We take that information, that data, we use it to tailor make programs that suit our religion. So it's not just like this is what it says and that's what we're going to do. No, but we are open to that. We find out information through our structures and tailor make whatever issues that may be there to address in hinging on our values.
Oh, interesting. I heard when you spoke about how when you do that river ceremony, you'll be dressed in your traditional. Do you do that one in Australia? Because I'm thinking of there is a time that we're going to take this program into those ceremonies where if it's happening probably in Zimbabwe, we check it there and we see how boys are being trained. Because sometimes when people talk about these things, they talk from hearsay. Where when you tell someone that you come from Africa, the next thing they ask you is, do you have elephants in your background?
Of course.
They don't understand that I've probably never seen an elephant in my life. But the picture they have of Africa is a bush. Yeah. So I want to give people a proper picture of how these things are done, because the moment people hear you maybe talking about how boys are going to be tested on virginity and girls as well, there's something that comes to the mind is cruelty and ridiculousness, not knowing that we are also advancing. So do you do that here in Australia? Like, do you have that ceremony where people after maybe as they will be celebrating, they are now wearing their traditional attires and doing?
Yes, we do. We practice it in according to Australian standards.
Okay.
As I've said earlier on, the youths are given an opportunity to say, if you know this is who you are, you go here.
Yeah.
If you know who you are, you go here. And remember, we are talking about spirituality.
Yeah.
And when we address them, and the way we do it, the ceremony itself, it touches the soul. And the youths will be able to know, they know themselves.
Yeah.
They know how they have been traveling. They will choose where they want to go.
Okay.
And when they choose where they want to go, because again of our limited numbers here, we don't have to physically check. We work with those children and we, like I said, educate about the importance of their looking after themselves and all that. The same to the other group. So yes, we do practice that. And then again, they dress up. Yes, we do have some of the traditional stuff that they, if they want to, they can put. Again, this is not like mandatory. It's not everyone who is supposed to do that. But with those who after teaching the values, just like in any church, the way we believe, we understand things is going to be different. So those who are, propelled or pushed by the Spirit to do so, they will come forward and they will do those. But in Zimbabwe, we do have, yes, the physical one, and if you would like, and if you're in Zimbabwe around August, that's when we do it, and you can let me know, and I can talk to the elders there, and they can welcome you and show you how we do that ceremony.
Oh, interesting. I'll let you know on that. Thank you so much, Dr. Zivave. Maybe one last thing that I would want you to do before we wrap up our program. To a boy who is preparing to get married today, what message do you have? What can you say to a young man who is preparing to march into marriage, excited, they're in love, madly in love? What message can you give that such kind of young man?
Thank you very much. The most important message I just sent out there is that prayer is the most important and most powerful. Pray to God to, if there are any issues or challenges with your partner, God may straighten them. That's because there are things, we are talking about the spirits that we don't see. When marriage is coming to, people are coming to marry each other, yes, the physical, yes, it's quite different from the spirits that dwell in these people. And therefore, because we don't know that area, we can only pray to God to help make sure the spirit that I'm connecting to will dwell well with my spirit. Because half the time you will find that when I've counseled people outside of Gutaramwari, I'm counselor as my profession. People who are coming to divorce, and you are talking to them, and physically they are still like wanting to be together, but spiritually they're disconnected. And no matter what you do here, you seem like you've solved something. They go home before you realize they are back again. So it is important that if you are in that and madly in love with someone and you want to marry, all you need to do is pray that person, the spirit in that person and your spirit can live together. Because even if they are attractive to you and all that, but if those two things aren't together, they may probably give you a big challenge.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zivave.
But whilst you're on that, if your marriage is also having those things and those spirits want healing, come to Gutaramwari, because that's what I said. Gutaramwari does heal those spirits. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Interestingly, I've gleaned a lot from this discussion, and I'm hoping this is just the beginning of my interaction with Gutaramwari. But I want to thank you for your humility to agree to come into our humble studio to come and tell us. We normally encourage our viewers to give us follow-up questions. So please get ready to come back here. If they give us any follow-up questions they want to understand, or follow-up topics they want to understand from you, because that's what we are here for. But thank you so much, Dr. Zivave, and I hope that you may continue to be uplifted in your ministry in the Gutaramwari and also in your personal life as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our program today. We have Dr. A Zivave, who is coming in here as an evangelist in the Gutaramwari religion, and he was giving us insights and highlights on how their religion empowers boys for marriage. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this program, please share with someone and let them know the platforms that we broadcasted so that they can be able to access us as well. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am human, did not feel obey. Kutendere murume, I see motion. I see motion, kutinda kapa mukota. Kutendere murume ndinende fu, I see motion. Tingwenguva ndefu tinotra, pasina no ndiwota. Kuti andi chemesha katangarin.